All right, so we just want to say welcome to everyone today for joining us for the Social Impact panel. I'm going to introduce you to our three panelists. We have Alissa from City Year. Alissa has been working with me for a couple years now, and we appreciate your time. She currently serves as a senior recruitment manager in the East region for City Year, based in the Philadelphia area. Alissa joined the Philadelphia recruitment team in 2011. After 3.5 years, Alissa moved to Miami to join the South region and returned again to the Northeast in August of 2017. She is originally from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and graduated from the University of Pittsburgh with a bachelor's degree in communications in the history of art and architecture. But it was her time outside of the classroom that inspired her to being in a career in higher education. Following graduation, she worked as a traveling educational consultant for her national sorority, Alpha Epsilon Phi. After successfully leading the colonization process at the University of Central Florida, she was hired back as the director of new group development. Alissa received her master's in higher education from Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey, and her favorite part about her job is connecting with students and helping you all to realize that learning does not stop after graduation. We have Tal from Teach for America. He grew up in, I'm gonna mess this up, Tal. Ossining,
yeah, very good.
Ossining, New York, and is a dual citizen of Israel. He attended Ithaca College and earned a Bachelor of Arts in writing with minors in politics and sports studies. Tal was passionate about finding an opportunity that involved advocacy, community engagement, and direct impact for after graduation. He ended up applying and joining Teach for America and committed to serve in Memphis, Tennessee. In Memphis, Tal had the amazing opportunity to be a kindergarten, first and second grade play teacher, a fifth grade writing teacher, and the assistant rugby coach of a high school. During his 2-year commitment as a core member with TFA, he had an enormous privilege to teach and work with over 500 students. Tal transitioned from the classroom to the recruitment team to help bring incredible leaders into schools and help college students find their path and place in addressing educational inequity. He now lives in Philadelphia with his girlfriend Olivia and their dog, Wilco. Andrew Maguire joins us for the Peace Corps. As Penn State's dedicated Peace Corps recruiter, Andrew works to spread the word about Peace Corps, assists interested individuals in understanding the Peace Corps experience, and helps candidates navigate the application and interview process. Andrew earned his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Penn State, and shortly after graduation left to serve as a Peace Corps volunteer, working on water and sanitation projects in rural Kenya. He has subsequently had a successful engineering career in the water and wastewater industry, working on projects around the world. His recent transition to his recruiter position is derived from his passion to talking about his career journey and how impactful his Peace Corps experience was. You are able to connect with him. You're able to connect with all of our recruiters after the event, so we can definitely share that contact information. But I will say that Andrew shares that he has pretty cool stories from Kenya involving giraffes, monkeys, and giant frogs. my 7-year-old would enjoy that very much. So thank you all for being here. And just to get us started, if you could all go into a little bit about your organization and the opportunities that our liberal arts students would be most interested in, that would be wonderful. Alissa, would you like to start? You're top on my screen.
All right. So again, I'm Alissa Krutoff. I apologize for the background noise. It is folks on the lawn. So City Year is an AmeriCorps program. We work in 29 cities across the United States. We were founded in 1988 in Boston. We have 3,000 volunteers serving in 29 cities. We work in urban communities that have the highest dropout rates in the country, and our goal is to reduce the dropout rate through early interventions. We are not classroom teachers. We are not there to serve as teachers. We are there to partner with the teachers, the administration, and the students. We are top. We are partners. So it's a team of about 8 to 15 young people in that school Monday through Friday. And you're gonna work with students in attendance, behavior, and course performance in both math and literacy. Our goal is to add additional eyes and ears and resources to schools that are under-resourced to help those students get back on track. We work with 4th through 9th graders, so it's early intervention, making sure that students are getting the additional resources they need so they're in school and on track towards graduation. It's an 11-month commitment, so our core members serve with us about a month before school starts, through a month of training, and then through graduation in June. So it's about July to June. You do have an option if you'd like to serve a second year. You get the full AmeriCorps benefits while you're serving with City Year, as well as additional benefits as City Year scholarships that you can get. So I am available to answer additional questions as we go through, because I can throw a whole lot of information at you at once, but that does not absorb unless you have questions for us. So that is City Year and then in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. I heard them, you're right. Tal, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. I just want to thank Katie for you having us again, and just to all the students who are in attendance, just wishing you nothing but the best. A little bit about Teach for America is we are a leadership development nonprofit organization committed to addressing and ending educational inequity in this country. And for us, that's addressing the systems and barriers in place that are currently affecting our most vulnerable students. When we think about education on a macro level across the United States, there are 16 million children living below the poverty line, of which only 50% are predicted to graduate high school. From that, only 14% are then predicted to go on to higher education. Our goal, our bottom line, is every child, regardless of zip code, deserves access to a high quality, excellent education. The way we want to make sure that this is a reality is by making sure we're bringing leaders who are going to continue in the classroom, but some who are also going to continue after the classroom. And so what we're offering is a 2-year full-time salaried AmeriCorps position to be a core member in an underserved community in one of our 48 plus regions across the United States. As a core member, you will not only be placed in a subject in a region that you're able to help pick along the way, but you're going to be in a position to not only have massive impact on the students you're working with, but build relationships with their siblings, community, and the families around you as well. During your 2 years in Teach for America, we want you to be constantly asking yourself, where does your impact lie? If your impact lies in the classroom, that's incredible. We want to make sure you have every development training possible to be in a position to be the best teacher you can be. But let's say your impact actually involves going back to grad school. Let's say your impact is in nonprofit, in healthcare, and going into criminal justice and policy. We want to make sure that you're in a pathway and on a trajectory to be living the life of impact that looks best for you. Whether that's taking advantage of our 70 plus grad school partnership programs, over 150 employer organization partnerships, and our alumni network of over 62,000 leaders, we want to make sure that you're in a position to tackle and address educational inequity both inside and outside of the classroom. I'm really excited to share more. And yeah, that's kind of Teach for America in a nutshell.
Perfect, thank you. Andrew?
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I'm ready to sign up, Tal. So Peace Corps is a federal program. It's been around since 1961. Probably most of you have heard of it, but don't know too many details. Since 1961, there's been over 230,000 volunteers that have served in 141 different countries around the world. Peace Corps volunteers go to countries that are interested in having qualified, trained Americans help them with their technical needs. So Peace Corps volunteers can do anything from work in a classroom as a teacher, to work at a health clinic, to working on a farm and helping sustainable farming issues. We are in 61 different countries. There's about 7,300 volunteers that were in those countries prior to COVID. We can get more into that, but Peace Corps is planning on restoring all those volunteer positions. And we're looking for volunteers in several different work sectors, that education, working with youth, working on community development issues, working at health clinics, working on farms, environmental issues. It's a 27-month commitment. 27 months, the first 3 months of training in country, and then 2 years at your job post. Peace Corps pays 100% of your cost when you're in country. I'd like to say you put your life on financial hold. You can defer your student loans, and then when you come back, you get a nice stipend to help you get back on your feet. You have the benefit of Return Peace Corps Volunteer on your resume. You have access to graduate school scholarship available only to Return Peace Corps volunteers, and you have the satisfaction of having made a significant impact in the community you're working in, and it helps you direct your career for the rest of your life. So look forward to chatting more about Peace Corps.
Great. Thank you all for taking that chance to share your opportunities and the impact you're making on society. Just a reminder for our students in attendance, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A as we go into some questions you might have brought with you or might come up from what our panelists are sharing with us today. So I'd like to start off, I shared some ideas with you all for discussion, but what is some advice you have? Let's start off with this. How are our liberal arts students a great candidate for these positions? Anyone can jump in there.
So for City Year, we have a team-based method of operating. And so we have teams of about 8 to 15 young people. So we are looking for folks that have all majors and all backgrounds. So think about yourself as a student. You sat in the classroom, there was one person in front of you talking. They went to school, they became a teacher, and they're spending the rest of their lives teaching. Think about if you had all 4 of us sitting, staring, talking to you. We all have different education backgrounds. I was a liberal arts student myself, and I would bring something different than definitely Andrew would bring to you. Definitely bringing that science and engineering piece of it. And so everyone having different interests and different backgrounds, not only just your own interest, but your educational study, brings that to our students. So thinking about sometimes as a liberal arts student, you think, I have this degree, I studied all these different things, but it doesn't translate to the jobs at a career fair. It doesn't translate to all these things when I put into a search bar in any career engine. But thinking about and going into your first year of work, volunteer work, and really being able to apply those different pieces and seeing which part of your education really you can see yourself exploring further. And what are those pieces that maybe those are just things you're going to do for fun, or that one course you took that really is going to be that piece of your future that you really see yourself doing long term. And so we are looking for, liberal arts students are some of our greatest students because you have such a variety of interests, as well as places that you've studied and different things that you've pulled into your education, but also sharing that with your students. So the student that, doesn't want to be a teacher, they don't want to be a doctor, they don't think they can be a lawyer, but you can teach them about astronomy and music theory and all those other cool things that you can learn as a liberal arts student. So really thinking about what you enjoy, bringing it to others, and then learning from that is really what I think a lot of our core members get in the long run.
To go off that amazing point in terms of like the incredible value add liberal arts college students bring to, I think, so many different impact services, is having based your education in, a plethora of interest, and knowing that you're going to be well equipped to handle a variety of problems that come up not in the classroom, but also within the systems you're interacting and dealing with, whether that's administration, whether that's the school system or curriculum. And just what we really think about is it is so incredible for the students we're serving with to bring in leaders who are passionate about their areas of interest. And we want you to be able to share those passions with the kids we're serving, because that really does have a life-changing impact potentially on our students. And I also think about why at Teach for America, we're very intentional about being open to all majors and all backgrounds, is because when we think about the complexity of educational inequity, as much as we need education majors and leaders who are going to stay and continue to impact in the classroom, we're also going to need leaders in every other sector. It is all interconnected, and really thinking about how a liberal arts degree and program is showing some of this interconnectedness. Starting in Teach for America can help crystallize where your path, where your vision of impact is best suited. And so that's why I just really think, also as like a liberal arts student myself recently, I do think that's really a benefit and something that helps stand you out on our application as well.
Yeah, so many things that Tal just said about the Teach for America experience, and Alissa was City Year. It's the same with Peace Corps. Peace Corps is looking for qualified candidates. To be qualified, you need to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree or 5 years of relevant experience. So, so we want to look at everyone. We don't just want to look at what their degree is in and what coursework they took. We want to hear about them and what their motivations are and what they want to do in the future and what kind of impact they want to have on the future. We want Peace Corps to be an experience that helps them launch that future. So, you know, liberal arts have great, well-rounded education, as so many of them that I talk to are just already have a vision of where they want to be in the future, and they pick Peace Corps as a step to get there. So, yeah.
Great, thank you all. You know, it's my platform, my soapbox with our liberal arts students, and in any industry, the transferable skills are so very important. And I think, speaking as the cheerleader for the 6,000 undergrads in the Penn State liberal arts, they define them in the global thinking and the problem solving and the analytical mind and recognizing differing opinions and communication skills. So kudos to all you students who are here. And it's not just the industry that we're talking with today. It's tech industries are coming to me and asking for liberal arts students because of that. You know, they can teach the tech skills. It's those transferable, solid, foundational skills that the liberal arts students have that may not be available in other majors. So in a segue, I did just get a question that I was hoping would come through. What makes an application for your program stand out, and what are you looking for in an exceptional candidate? And this comes from Allie.
Well, I'll start. So just point of reference, I am the Penn State Peace Corps recruiter. So one of my roles is to help the students at Penn State be exceptional candidates. So I can help you with that. So if you're not sure if you're an exceptional candidate or not, make an appointment with me and I'll help you look like an exceptional candidate. But I will say, if you want to be an exceptional candidate in the eyes of the Peace Corps, you need to be very well-rounded beyond the classroom. You need to have some volunteer experience. If you have an opportunity to travel internationally and have an international experience in a volunteer capacity, that would make you an exceptional candidate. But not everyone has those opportunities, but there's plenty of opportunities within our own community to volunteer your time, to be active in other clubs, take leadership roles. Peace Corps likes to see leadership. They like to see volunteerism. And again, a well-rounded candidate.
To echo Andrew's point for a moment, one of my jobs with Teach for America as well is just helping with both the initial part of the application and preparing for a final interview as well. So I'm so happy to dive into that. But thinking about, you know, how you're going to stand out, I think about what goes into our application. And so for our application, it's mainly focused on, in the initial part, your resume and your response to 2 short answer questions. And so thinking about how you can stand out with your resume and with your experiences is, we read a lot about the responsibilities that you're participating with on campus. What helps this resume stand out is quantifying your impact and your success within those responsibilities. And also being able to put a number to your story in your resume gives us more clarity on how you were not just exceptional in your role, but going above expectations as well. I also think about I also think about, with our short answers, there are so many different ways you can take it. Just to be very transparent, the two short answer questions for Teach for America's first application is, why do you want to join Teach for America, and what is your greatest accomplishment? And with the, thinking about what we're looking for, I think the two main points I want to stress is fit. And that means not just that you are interested in being a teacher, because that is not at the core what our mission is centered around. It's thinking, why does the mission of addressing educational inequity and ensuring that every child, regardless of zip code, has access to an excellent education is important to you, and where you want to take those next steps. And so being able to speak to your own experiences, but also your own vision and perspective is something that's going to help highlight your own background and your own reasoning for wanting to join TFA. And then when you're thinking about greatest accomplishments, and I think this is something that a lot of impact service programs might ask, is what's something you're proud of? What is your greatest impact? I think it's being able to provide the clear steps you took in the face of adversity to have a successful result, and what steps you take to overcome different challenges. And then going back to a similar point is, how do you not just exceed expectations, but then help other people and bring in results that are incredibly meaningful to the work you're trying to do? And then again, very happy to go more in depth in one-on-one, or answer that question more in depth as well if there's a follow-up.
I'll kind of go on the opposite end of that. Is we're not looking for something specific in a candidate. What we want to know is about you. So who are you and what can you offer to our students? So our students might not be exposed to someone who has gone to Penn State. They might not have been exposed to someone with your major, your area of study. We hire 18 to 25-year-olds. So some of our greatest applicants are recent high school graduates. They understand a student better than, the 70-year-old teacher that's in a classroom that hasn't been, 12 in a really long time. And so what we want to know is, what are you bringing to us? What can you offer to the students, and why do you want to be here? So what Tal was saying again is what is it that you've done, and the why? What is bringing you here? Why do you want to help others? But also, what do you want to get out of it? What do you want to learn? Because all of us know that every one of you that's coming to serve with us has not done this before. You might have had experiences, you might have done some things to volunteer, but that full-time volunteer experience is something you haven't done. Even if you've done a mission trip or you've done a volunteer experience, they've been for a month, 2 months, a summer, a couple weeks. But really, what does that full-time mean, and what do you want to get out of it? So that really hard, solid understanding of the work that we do, which is why we all have jobs, is that it's not always easy to understand that and talk to a recruiter. Reach out to us so that we can answer those questions, but really understanding what it is you're going to be doing, being vulnerable to have those questions. The applicants not only asking us as recruiters what your questions are, but also asking in your interview. Being able to ask questions at your interview of those things that you want clarity on really make you more intelligent as an applicant as well. But really thinking about, why do you want to be here, and why should we want you here? And your clear understanding of that, but also remember that we are not looking for one cookie cutter piece, because we are a puzzle of all different pieces that are coming together to bring this to the students. So what are you going to bring to our students and our cities that we don't already have?
Let me unmute. Let's take that to another level. And if anyone else has anything to offer, what common mistakes are you seeing students make? Common delays or issues that you're just unable to process applications?
So I would say a common mistake on the Peace Corps application is kind of a false perspective on what the expectations are as a Peace Corps volunteer. Serving, thousands of miles away from home, disconnected from your family and friends for 27 months is a huge commitment. and you need to be doing it for more than just to save the world. You know, that needs to be a little bit of it. You need to want to make an impact. You want to make a small impact on the community you're going to, but you also have to be motivated by, you know, a personal and a professional journey. Personally, it should be a little bit about a sense of adventure to move to another country and learn about another community and become culturally fluent, understand what that means and how exciting that is, and then take that back with you when you return and have that impact you for the rest of your life. And professionally, you need to think about, all right, after I'm done with my service, what's my next steps? And if you go into the interview process, the application process, and you haven't thought that through, and you're just kind of applying on a whim because it sounds really cool to live in a mud hut in Namibia, I don't think you're a good candidate, and it's not going to go well. But if you have given a lot of thought to why you're applying and the struggles that you anticipate you'll go through, but how you'll overcome those are the type of candidates that are the strong candidates.
I think for me, it goes back to what we said, that understanding what you're applying for, which is what Andrew was saying as well, is really understanding it and having those thoughts. I think one thing we see folks go through the process, the application process, and then close to the end or ready to start date, will say, oh, I didn't realize X, Y, or Z. And while some folks are just moving, you know, a couple miles from home or across the country, not realizing that and understanding, you know, you are getting a stipend, you are, you know, all those pieces that you're getting, really understanding what you're applying for. So that's one thing we do see. I think just not reading all of the details and asking the questions. I don't read emails in full. I'm guilty of it. But things that matter, you need to read the small print, the large print, and all the details in the email. So many times we get a student that says, oh, I didn't realize, I didn't know. And we can look back in our system and show you the emails you got that said each one of those pieces. So while we know everyone is busy, I think that's another thing. Students are really busy and they just want to help people. Those are two great things, but you need to make time when you're applying for jobs, and two, really showing us how you want to help people, because wanting to help people and actually making that difference are two different things, and how you can do that, because I'm sure both of you can say it as, you know, you've heard it a million times, is I really just want to help people however I can do that. Why is it that you're applying to these programs? And sometimes too is that confusion of you're applying for multiple things. So make sure when you're talking to someone from X, Y, or Z organization, you're talking about the right program, because it just makes you a little bit more desirable when we know you're actually applying to us, but we also know you're looking at multiple programs. Don't think we don't know that, and we don't think that that's a bad thing. You need to be competitive and you need to have options, but be in the mindset when you're in that interview, in that application process, that you are focused and understanding of what you're applying for.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in there, Alissa. When you're talking to me about Peace Corps, don't call it Peace Corps. It's Peace Corps. All right, that's definitely bad.
I think what has just been shared is incredibly like really helpful advice. I want to just add a little bit more to that in just saying that, you know, it is okay that you're applying to like multiple opportunities, like, and we highly encourage it. And I think like you can have interest, and one of the ways that we offer our application process is that it's meant to be exploratory. We're hoping that while you're applying to our program, you're going to also be able to learn more about it through each stage. And that's part of the reason why that it does have multiple steps. And I think one of the benefits with looking at, you know, your next steps is thinking that you should cast the wide net. We want to make sure that, like, even if you do have an offer for Teach for America, we purposely make it non-binding, because we want to make sure this is exactly what you want to be doing next and not limit you in any way from seeking other opportunities. Going to kind of the common mistakes we're seeing on our resume and applications, I think it was really well said in terms of knowing why you're applying for something. And I think sometimes we get answers that seem it's what students think we want to hear. And I think you need to also be able to authentically speak to why you want to be in the classroom or why you want to join Teach for America. Because it can definitely be that you want to join Teach for America because you love working with kids and you want to make a difference and you want to be in a position as a teacher. But that also doesn't necessarily speak to what our mission holistically is. And just thinking like when we're looking at candidates, we want to look at the whole applicant. We also want to make sure that when you're applying, when you're using your own resume, that you're standing out in so many different areas as well. But is it okay, Katie, if I address the question in the chat about opportunities that were cool? I'm going to just do that for a second. So if you
yes, I was just going to do that, and go ahead, and I have a resource too to share as well. So.
Awesome. I think the resource is going to be really helpful, whatever that is. I just wanted to say, I do think at times it is okay to put that on your resume. It's depending on what the application and what you're looking to do. It's also thinking about the timetable of when that kind of happened. It's something that you might not need to have on your resume for the next 2 or 3 years, but it's something when you're thinking about your immediate job applications, if you're able to kind of speak to what your responsibilities were going to be, what the process looked like. There are definitely a few applications, including I would recommend with Teach for America, where you can add that experience because you are not to blame for COVID.
So I just want to clarify for everyone, because I don't know if you can see the question, if it hasn't, I haven't marked that it's been answered yet, but a student asked, how should, regarding resumes, how should candidates discuss opportunities that they were accepted into, but were unable to complete because the experience was canceled due to COVID? So absolutely, as Tal is saying, that you can put that on your resume. It should be formatted as you're doing your other experiences with the organization name, your title, and the bullet will read canceled due to COVID. Obviously, this is going to be one of the first things that comes off your resume. We can only live off of that for so long. And I shared the Get Hired website in the chat box. This was one of the slides at the beginning of the webinar, but there is information there about updating your resume. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Tal. I just wanted to read the question and then I get going.
appreciate that.
So what I was hearing from our last conversation, a little bit more about the mistakes, and a key word is research. I think researching your organization, not just these 3, but anything you're applying for, be relevant, connect yourself to the relevant points, connect yourself to the qualifications. And I would also say it's important to research yourself. What are your values? What do you want your quality of life to look like? How much money is it important for you to make? You know, all those things are values that need to be met in order for you to feel satisfaction within the job and career you choose. It won't always be perfect, and that's okay too, right? We need to learn and develop in different roles as well. So thank you all for that. Could you go into, I'll start with anybody who's ready, but I was thinking, Tal, I'll start with you. A little bit about deadlines, the upcoming deadlines you might have for your organization. And I know Teach for America has, early applications as well for our juniors. So.
Absolutely. And so we have a deadline coming up on Friday, October 16th. For this first deadline, what you would need is your resume and to answer the 2 short answer questions that I mentioned previously. We also have additional deadlines on December 4th, January 29th, and our last deadline for seniors who are considering starting in May of 2021 would be March 4th. So those are our deadlines for seniors this year. Again, the closest one is October 16th. And I'm going to have my contact information if you're interested in talking about that application at all before then, or any application in general. We also have early applications for juniors as well. There are a lot of benefits to applying as a junior, most of which tend to come as having a higher chance of getting your top region and subject preferences, but then also being able to connect and build community over the summer while having an offer going into senior year. Those deadlines will begin to open similarly in January as well. And I will be in touch with Katie and just with the school with more information. And lastly, we do have underclassmen opportunities for service and for impact. And I'm going to make sure in a follow-up email or just in general that you have a resource to look more into opportunities to get involved. Normally, we like trying to put together in-person conferences, but this year we're going to have more virtual engagement opportunities available.
Alissa, would you like to go next?
Yep, so we have multiple deadlines throughout the year. So we open up our application at the end of summer. So usually around August, so around the time school starts. And that is for folks that are interested in serving the following year. So we have people who serve with us after 2 years of community college, right out of high school, regardless of what it is. So you don't need to worry about what year you are in school if you are going to be available for full-time service the following year. So the application opens up in August, and we have multiple deadlines throughout the year for all positions that start in July or August of that following year. So the application right now is open for the 21-22 year of service. Applying early, like Tal said, helps you to just be able to network, know what you're doing for the following year. But honestly, it's for your benefit more than ours, because you're going to have that out of the way. Positions will still be available. You are choosing the site you want to serve in. So there is no preference. It is site choice. So you don't need to worry about not being able to get your preference. But if you decide you want to apply in July, some positions will probably be filled, and you may not get all the options that you want. So definitely applying sooner than later is what you want to make sure you do. If you go to the City Year website, if you just Google City Year deadlines, best way to find it, you'll see apply by, notify by, confirm by. So that's how you'll know, when you'd be able to make a decision. So I know if you're applying to Teach for America and City Year, you're going to look at both of those deadlines to know when you'd have to notify both by, so you can make informed decisions based on kind of how our deadlines fall in place, or any other program that you might be applying to as well. But basically, when you apply by that deadline, everyone's being looked at the same time. So that's basically who you're, I don't want to say being compared to, but that's who you're going to be looked at the same time as. It could be more competitive one deadline than the other, but we don't have a crystal ball, because we can look at metrics from the past 9 years I've been with the organization, and it's different every year. So you probably know better than we do, talking to your friends, but who knows what's happened across the country.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, my response is a little bit more complicated. Prior to that little virus thing that happened in March, we had the same model where we would have deadlines that were, the application deadlines were approximately 9 months prior to the date that you'd be available to leave. So if you were graduating senior in this spring, the deadline would have been October 1st to leave shortly after you graduated. So traditionally, 9 months prior to when you want to leave, you want to get your application in, which would be all online through the peacecorps.gov website. Requires a resume, cover letter, or motivation statement, and references. Pretty traditional, like all of these applications. Because of COVID, all the volunteers were evacuated from their countries. All volunteer operations were suspended in 61 countries around the world, and all those volunteers were returned to the US. Right now, Peace Corps is looking at each country and figuring out a timeline when volunteers can return to those countries. They're hoping to start returning volunteers to some countries in early 2021, more in mid 2021, and then hopefully most of volunteer services in those 61 countries will be restored by the end of 2021. But each one of those countries is a different scenario on the safety of the volunteers, which is the #1 priority. That being said, Peace Corps no longer has deadlines for when applications are due. We accept them on a rolling basis. So if you're graduating in the spring and you'll be ready to volunteer as soon as you graduate, my advice to you is get your application in as soon as possible, because there's a backlog of volunteers that have already been accepted but haven't left yet, and other people applying. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you get online and wait for your opportunity. And it's tough to predict when volunteers will be returning and how quickly that backlog of qualified candidates will get their positions and be leaving for their countries. So hopefully by this time next year, when we're having the same conversation, we'll be back to the traditional system where we have deadlines every quarter, and those coincide with leaving about 9 months after you apply.
I sure hope so. Just a reminder to our students, you're welcome to put any questions in the Q&A box and we'll share them with our panelists. I think this could be helpful information if you could tell us how COVID has affected your organization, and how are you incorporating anything with the pandemic into your interview process, and asking the students how they work through it.
I can start with this. And so COVID has not been directly introduced into our interview or application process, but when we're asking you what's the greatest accomplishment, when we're asking you about like something you're proud you achieved, what's like a challenge that you've overcome, that definitely can be a part of your answer. Thinking about how COVID has affected Teach for America, it was kind of stark to watch in March of last year. So many of our core members and just teachers across the United States moved to a completely virtual situation with instruction. We wanted to make sure that our teachers were equipped to lead instruction virtually, but that are also our students who, you know, about 30% of our students did not have access to Wi-Fi at the start of COVID. And so we were working with some of our corporate sponsors and with local community partners and school districts to make sure that every child could have access to the internet and had a device to go on as well. And so really when COVID hit, our main intention was how do we make sure that these gaps that already exist are not going to increase monumentally. And I believe Alissa can talk to City Year and their development and support in classrooms as well during that time. It was really incredible, and already teachers serve so many different hats, but just watching core members and alumni step up for their communities, for their kids during COVID, is something that just really stands out to me as well. And thinking about this summer, normally with training, you will go to your region and have in-person training. So I was in the core in Memphis, so my training took place at the University of Memphis, and we did summer school in the area as well. This year's summer training was entirely virtual, and it allowed our core members to engage with lesson planning, curriculum building, classroom management, classroom culture, and building expectations, but then also gave core members the chance to practice summer school virtual instruction. And although depending on where you're serving in the core, some are still doing completely virtual, we do have some core members who are serving in southern regions where school is open and in person or more of a hybrid learning, who are still doing in-person instruction. So we want to make sure our core members are safe and supported no matter where they're serving. But thinking about where training is next summer, we would love to do it in person again, but we are flexible and adaptable, and nothing is set in stone right now. So just wanted to provide some clarity there.
Yep. So that flexibility is kind of that key word. We're not asking specifically, you know, how has COVID impacted you? I think most of the time that's the question we get asked, how is it impacting our work? And I think that flexibility is key. So we are in 29 cities. We're partnered with the school districts in each of those school districts. Each of those school districts had different plans in March. They had different plans in April. They had different plans for what was going to happen in September. And they kept changing, and they still are changing. And so we are working with our teachers, we're working with the principals, and making sure that we are adding that additional support as needed as best as we can. I can't remember the statistic, but it was something like 60% of students in Philadelphia public schools were not accounted for because again, they don't have the technology, all those pieces of how were they actually taking attendance and getting them there. Things like standardized testing did not happen last year. And so for a lot of our metrics, all of us in education, the metrics aren't there for our students. So who are we working with? Why are we working with them? How do we determine which students need services? And so all those pieces weren't there. And so what we looked at is what are the best ways that we can be there to support our students, but also those privacy pieces. So we can't just call a student or FaceTime a student because that goes against policies. So some of our core members literally took a pause from service for the districts to assess what was happening, and then for us to be able to then say, this is what we're doing. Some of our teams were delivering videos to students, so creating content that students could watch, not live. Really working with the teachers and the systems that were in place to figure out how we can do that. A lot of our core members wanted to get out into the community, wanting to help others, but we had to say that's not safe. In some cities, in other cities, there were food banks that we were able to set up for students and their families. And technology distribution, those different things, how can we help? But I think the key thing definitely for us is how are you flexible in that? I think if anyone comes into an interview and says like, COVID ruined my life and this is how it ruined anything else, I think looking at any of you as college students who have continued to go to school, continue to thrive, navigate new ways. Yes, we are all impacted and it's terrible in so many ways for us, but how are you continuing to go and showing us your persistence also will help you to be able to help students in their futures as well. So I think definitely that flexibility piece. I think Tal and Andrew have both said next year is still unknown. We don't know what will happen. And I think we are just going with what's happening and seeing what is next. Our core members in some of our cities are starting to go into schools in the next couple weeks. Some are not, some have already been, and we don't know what next year will hold. We don't know where we're recruiting. You don't know, where we're training, any of those things. So I think flexibility and just being able to say that overcoming a challenge, I think we ask it in an interview. I think COVID is going to be one of those key answers that you can share how you overcame that challenge and the impact it made on you and how you overcame that, which then will help others.
And I'll just talk briefly, since I already went into a little bit about how COVID has affected the Peace Corps and how it's affected the interview process is that we've not been interviewing right now. Traditionally, Peace Corps had already identified the volunteer positions in the countries of service. And so when an applicant submitted their application, they were either submitting to best fit, so let Peace Corps figure out where their talents and their skills might be the best fit, or they're applying for a specific volunteer position in a specific country. Either way, when you get to the interview process, you are interviewing for that specific position. So you would know, hey, I'm interviewing to be a health sector volunteer in Kenya. That was me. That's why I use that as an example. And right now, since there's an unknown on what countries are going to be opening up next and how many positions will be available, Peace Corps has chosen to identify good candidates and get them ready for interviews, but we're not conducting interviews right now. Hopefully that'll change soon. I hear that it will change soon, but yeah. My best advice to anyone applying is patience.
Thank you all. I apologize, number one, for losing my video for the rest of the webinar, but I think this is going to be a question we're asking at events in the very near future for a while, at least. So I appreciate sharing that. In the last couple of minutes, I would love for each of you who have had your own experiences with your organization to share your favorite memory from your own experience with each nonprofit. Alissa, do you want me to call you out first?
I can go first. So today marks my 9-year anniversary with City Year. So I've been
Congratulations.
Thank you. You get the notification in our
LinkedIn.
our workday system. So for me, like I said, we have young people who serve with us out of high school. So the individual that says, similar to what European countries and other places, that folks do a gap year before going to university or going to college. And so I was at my alma mater at the University of Pittsburgh, sorry, Penn State, recruiting, and a young man came up to my table and he was like, oh my God, City Year is here. I serve with City Year. He was a student body president of the university, and just an incredible young man that just talked about his experience and how it shaped him as a college student. He ended up helping us and serving with us in a capacity to help recruit that year. About a month later, he introduced me to a friend that he met on campus that served in another city, also involved in student government, and shared his experiences. And just looking at our alumni, we have alumni who graduate from Princeton with a master's degree and serve on a team with someone with a high school diploma, and their experience with their students shows how they've grown. And while 4 years of college is an incredible transformational experience, I don't know if that was a word, the experience you get in 11 months of service with City Year and your teammates and your students changes you. It changes your outlook on life. It changes your outlook on society. It allows you to help others, but also help yourself at the same time. And seeing our alumni is what changes my mindset from day to day. I love seeing our students. I love seeing their passion for City Year. And hey, City Year, are you a City Year? When I show up at a school and they're like, you don't work here? But I'm wearing a red jacket and they're confused on who I am. But it's the core members and seeing their lives changed while changing others is what for me has brought me to work in higher ed, but also allowing me to see just how folks grow over that year and how that applies to the rest of their lives. So definitely Robert and Graham are the two that pop out of my mind as folks that I met, just as amazing young men, but also just amazing transformation from their City Year experience and then into the rest of their lives. The one went to Harvard Law School with a full scholarship after graduating from college. So, you know, just a small accomplishment in life.
Thank you. Great story. Tal?
Yeah, this is a really tough one because I have so many of my students are, so many of my stories are centered around the students who I was fortunate enough to teach. But I think I want to share, like, I think my favorite memory actually comes from last year when I was out of the classroom, and it's one of my favorite memories. But as a teacher, as a 5th grade writing teacher, I took over in the middle of the year. And I just really wanted my students to see writing as more than something for a grade and just this incredible tool for creating change, for building worlds, to building something that we can then attain. And so I loved my 5th grade writing class, but sometimes when you're teaching, you don't have this instant gratification. You feel like you can say you need to demand the education you deserve to your students, but then not see that come through in fruition and how that's playing out when you're no longer there. But kind of one of my favorite assignments I ever did was when I took over the 5th grade writing class. We did a prompt, what does not work for you in the school? And they went off. And that is how we dove into our argumentative curriculum, where we then handed in, you know, what we want to see different of the school to the school principal himself. And there were so many changes made from their work that, you know, I thought it was just like this powerful lesson that your words are not just powerful, they carry weight. But, you know, they went off to middle school next. And so I was in Philadelphia and I got a text from one of my students. And I will share, her name is Jada, and Jada texted me, hey, Mr. Mintz, I hope you're doing well. Don't know why you left Memphis. Like, she had to throw a little shade, and said, I'm planning a walkout. Thoughts? And I know I don't have gray hair, but I think that would have turned my hair gray very quickly. Like, I was like, Jada, I want to get on the phone with you. And we talked about why she wanted to do a walkout of her school and how she felt the school wasn't living up to her expectations. And this was specifically centered around a dress code issue. And, you know, I was trying to kind of reason and be like, okay, what is an alternative? And Jada said, aren't you the one who said, like, I have to demand the education I deserve? And I've never been quoted to, but that just felt weird and really cool. And just like, yes, but I don't want you getting in trouble. And so what Jada ended up brainstorming with was a petition. And she got over 200 students to sign a petition that said if they do not change this dress code requirement, these kids will walk out of school. And the administration ended up changing their policy. And I love that memory because it's not like, yes, it's a fun conversation with Jada, but it's more that I want to make sure my students are in a position to be their own fiercest advocates. And I think that's one of your primary roles as an educator. And so, I don't know, I can't tell that story about Jada without smiling.
Thanks for that, Tal. Yeah, I like your story, Tal, because what jumps out at me is the impact you had on that student, Jada, and how she came back to you. And that's kind of what my story is about as well. Katie mentioned I have stories about giant frogs, so I'll give it to you just briefly. So I served in Kenya. After my 3 months of training in country, I was in a rural town called Tunyai. And my role there, I was the water and sanitation guy. So I worked with a community center, and community members could come to me and I could help them with their water and sanitation needs. So my first 3 months was a struggle getting good projects going, but one of my first substantial projects was working with a school and the school community to build a catchment tank to catch the rainwater off a rock basement when it rained. So it meant that school children didn't have to miss school to walk an hour each way to fetch water from the river. They could get their water from the schoolyard. So it was a big community project, and we worked, and there was very well-defined gender roles. The men were very involved with me on the construction side of things, and the women were always involved with bringing food and supporting us, which is, just the way it was there. So anyway, towards the end of the project, one of the final steps was to clean out the inside of this tank. This was a huge tank, so you could easily climb down inside of it, and 15 people could be inside this tank. And so when it came time to clean this tank, none of the men wanted to go in there because that was cleaning. So they told the woman they had to go in there. And so, but of course, I was all in, so we all went in together. Me and we called them mamas, the 15 mamas or 10 mamas inside this tank. And it was very dark, and we got our flashlights on, and it had rained over the past week, so there was some water at the bottom of the tank. And we looked at scattered on the bottom of the tank, including the construction debris, were all these bullfrogs, these giant bullfrogs. So, and just special memory of just hysterical laughter with the 10 of us inside this tank with all these frogs. And then we, made an assembly line and got the frogs out of there, cleaned it out, put the final touches on the tank, and it was functional. So fast forward 20 years later, I had an opportunity to bring my family, my wife and 3 children back to the village where I served as a Peace Corps volunteer. And I actually stayed in the house where I lived in as a Peace Corps volunteer for 2 weeks while I was over there. And I was able to visit some of my old projects. And I went to that project at that schoolyard, and it's still functional, it's still working. School children are still using that as their water source. And it just made me feel really great that I had made that small impact on that community. So, and to show my family what I had done over there was extra special.
Definitely full circle for sure. Well, we have come to our end. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the students for signing on. I will be sharing those of the students that have signed in. I'll share your information with our recruiters who can reach out to you. You're also welcome to reach out to them individually if you'd like to connect with me for that contact information. So, and again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to the Career Enrichment Network directly. Our email is lanetwork@psu.edu or directly to me at kmw30@psu.edu. So thank you all again. I'm gonna stop record for right now.